lifting my head up from the camera, and there's this 90-year-old man and this tiny little Bichon Frise dog coming out the front door
of the house.
And he was out the house, and he was looking to fight. So, what the F are you doing here? And I just had to say, and I didn't want to tell him, I'm sorry, I thought your house was abandoned, because that would just make things worse. And, he was coming towards me with the fists up.
I don't know who you are, but welcome to the Irish Photography Podcast. Sit back, relax, and listen about cameras, gear, settings, stories, and all things photography. Join Darren on Ireland's Best Photography Podcast. Let's go.
You're very welcome to episode 147 of the Irish Photography Podcast. My name is Darren. I'm your host this evening, and I'm joined by somebody who's my second time actually trying to record with him, because I had a big issue with my mic system last week, so I had to reschedule. So I'm delighted to have him back on again. David, welcome to the Irish Photography Podcast. How are you getting on, man?
Darren, good to be here. Shame I'm not being interviewed by Michael D. Higgins this evening like I was the last time, but we'll make do with you.
Well, you know what? That would have been fun for around 5 seconds, but I'd say after the 5 seconds, it would have been taxing on you anyway.
Any chance of listenership would have been gone out the window within a couple of minutes.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm good, yeah.
Absolutely.
Not a bother.
Good stuff. You had a good week anyway since we spoke last.
Yeah, grand. Working, most of it.
Sure, yeah. Things have to be done. So, come here, actually.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I suppose, look, before we get into your photography, and I've admired your shots, and there's a lot that I want to get into as well during the whole conversation today, but tell the people, who is David?
That's a fairly deep question, so we'll keep it simple. I'm a 40-year-old man from the Midlands, based here in Tullamore in County Offaly, married with 2 kids, and I work in the hospital here in Tullamore. And when I'm not working, I'm either thinking about taking a shot, or I'm out somewhere in the country taking a shot.
Good man. That's the way to be.
That's pretty much it, boiled down.
Yeah, always be thinking in relation to the camera. Do you find yourself when you're driving along the road as well, you were going, geez, look at that, that'd be good, I'm going to go back to this later?
I will crash because I'm staring at clouds on some occasion.
Yeah, it is not.
Especially this week, looking at some of them.
Oh yeah, this week has been incredible actually. Yeah, it's rainbow season, they call it.
Yeah, it's a great time of year, really. Because I was trying to think of it the other day. What if Darren asked me what my favourite time of year is? I won't know what to say to him, because just looking out the window, this time of year is brilliant. Look at the sky there; it's fantastic. Or summertime. Well, I don't have to work on summertime. I can actually get out and do stuff. So yeah, don't ask me that. I have no answer.
All of them for many different reasons.
Yeah, whenever I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. And tell me, how did you get started, and when did you get started in photography?
I'm at it about, I'd say, 5.5 years.
Okay.
Now, photography was something that was never on my radar at all. I went to art college down in Limerick about 20 years ago, did about 3 years down there.
Right.
And over time, I've kind of fallen out of love with art a bit. Like, I don't have the time, especially since the kids have come along, to sit down sketching all day. But I'd always been sketching or doing something creative from when I was young. And I think I got to that stage where I don't know if it happens to most fellas, but you're in your 30s, you're married, you've kids, you're working, but you're at a bit of a loss. You need something to do with your time. So ever since I got a smartphone, whenever I went somewhere with Elaine, I was always taking a picture of this or taking a picture of that. And it was actually Elaine that suggested to me, sure, there's a fella in Athlone, a guy called Liam Kidney, who does a beginner intro to DSLR photography. Why don't you give it a go? It's a 6-week course. So I signed up anyways and went. Didn't even have a DSLR, never used one before. So turned up to the first 2 classes, took notes, didn't have a camera. It was like an AA meeting. Now everybody had to stand up and say their name and what camera they had. My name's David. I don't have a camera. So I ended up going on Dundee and I bought a Canon 1000D off some fella in Navan. And like it was like the Starship Enterprise. I didn't know what I was doing with it. But the great thing about that course was Liam wouldn't let anybody use automatic modes.
Very good.
So we just had to start learning from manual, and that was the best foundation we could have done. So it kind of took off from there, really. I messed around after the course was finished. Messed around a bit for a few months, and then you look out, the weather's not great. I won't go out this evening. I won't do that. but I wasn't getting anywhere with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was when the Beast from the East, when we had that,
Uh-huh.
I went out that day and I met a local photographer from Connemara called Paul Moore. And Paul turned professional there a couple of years ago. He's always on Facebook. Everybody knows him in the town.
Yeah.
And I had such a good time that day. I didn't spend the whole day with Paul, just met him for a second. That I decided, right, I'm going to try and to make this a serious hobby now. I'll go out at least once a fortnight and just see how much better I can get at it. If I can really work at it, but more out of interest, how good could I get at it? So, like, I'm not saying I'm any good now, but that was really where it started.
It's interesting you say it there as well. Just a couple of things from that. I mean, I started as well with the Canon 1000D, and similar to that as well. You know, it was like looking at Starship Enterprise, and I remember at the time going, "How do you do these long exposure things?" I wanted to try and do something with water, and I got it, but I didn't know how I got it. And
Well, what's a filter?
yeah, exactly. I had no filter, so I was like, "How are they able to?" So I figured it out. I know obviously now how I did it, but at the time I just started turning knobs and dials, and all of a sudden it was something coming out that wasn't white. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, "Wow!"
I bought filters online. I went to Club MacNoise. I'm going to use these filters, but I had no idea what filters were for or what you did with them. So I just throw a filter on and take a picture, and then look at the picture. It's not much different. I don't know what it is. But I eventually saw this guy on what was it, on Facebook called Bernard Geraghty doing a little video from a field up in Kildare. Turned out he did workshops. So he was doing a long exposure workshop in Glenbarrow, which is near where I am. And I said, I'll sign up for this now. So I ended up going on that. And ever since then, it kind of just took off. You know?
Yeah. BG is good now, to be fair. I know we'll probably talk about him as well more in the podcast as well also himself. But it's, you know,
it's great to have people like that around, you know.
100%. And, you know, you mentioned there in relation to getting out from the Beast from the East, is it always landscape photography that you've done, or have you tried other genres of photography since you've really decided it's going to be a passionate hobby?
I think it's more predominantly landscapes. You know, at the start, of course, I was taking pictures of everything, like most people, I suppose. But really, as landscapes is what I wanted to do. You know, I just like being out, traveling somewhere I haven't been to, getting in the car, finding somewhere new, and just, you know, having a bit of time to myself, just trying to create from that. You know, I see guys, street photography. I love looking at street photography.
Yes.
You know, you have Dave Cramen down in Cork, Brendan O'Shea. Guys like 6 Street Under, great to look at, but it's not the buzz I'm after. Like, I just like to take it easy, just get my shot, bring it home, edit it, and just enjoy the landscape that I'm in. Like,
100%. And I think the other side of that too is that when you're out in the landscape, you're away from everything else. You can kind of switch off, you know. Whereas if you're siding, I like similar to that as well. I like street photography. I've tried it once. And I think I got a nice shot at one point of one thing. It was during the Jazz Weekend, actually, in Cork, but I never really have gone back to it or tried it again. The landscape is for me.
Constant stress.
It is.
What's this person going to say?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, yeah, like a tree won't shout at you, so I don't mind that.
Yeah, I always say I don't have to pose a rock. You know, I mean, and that's the thing about it, because like people photography, it's challenging, it's hard. You know,
it is a skill in itself. Yeah, and you need a pair of brass nuts on you to do it, to even start off.
Fully agree.
But being out in the landscape is just, there's something special about it, and I think if that's what you're after, you know, that's the best place to go. There's a guy on Instagram, it's a John Myler, does a lot with mental health, and you know, he does brilliant stuff there. And there's definitely a mindfulness aspect to it.
Huge.
Even if you're not going out deliberately for that, you notice it. You know, because I forget everything. I could take pictures all day. I'd even forget to get my lunch. I come home, I haven't eaten all day. You know, but yeah, it's definitely landscapes, and just getting lost in the landscapes is what does it for me. So
I 100% agree with you. And it's funny you mentioned John. I mean, John was one of the founding members of the Irish Photography Podcast. He was part of the trio. So, you know, John is a great guy from the mindfulness point of view, and there's a lot to be said for it as well, you know.
Definitely.
And like, you know, you have to be able to switch off. You have to be able to wind down the gears. I mean, we're all going at 150 miles an hour, but landscape photography gives you that opportunity to switch off. And I love it because there's no mobile signal for the most places that I'll go. So even if somebody wanted to try and disturb me, they can't. The problem is when you come back and you see your phone hopping, you got like 5 or 6 voicemail messages in the space of 2 hours. And you're going, Jesus, what's going on here?
I forgot to collect the kids. Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thankfully, I haven't
But
done that.
it's just such a brilliant hobby, really.
Yeah.
Like it's got the techie aspect of it. If you're into that, it's got the creative aspect. It's got a sense of adventure, traveling away to, like I've seen places in Ireland that I would never have gone to. And there's that. Like I love traveling to these places, getting up 6 o'clock in the morning. What little road is Google Maps going to try and send me up this week? And just arriving at somewhere in Galway, somewhere down in Limerick or Cork, never been before, and then trying to wrangle something out of it.
Yeah, for sure. It's great. Yeah. It's great. You know what? It beats going to the pub on a Saturday and spending the whole afternoon cursing at a screen for 22 players that don't care about you, but all you're doing is just basically getting riled up for something that in reality...
You sound like a Man United fan.
I generally reference it to Man United. You know what? I used to be a football fan when I was younger, but photography has taken over. I haven't seen a game in I don't know how long. I was an Arsenal fan, actually, which was, surprising in a way, because my father was a United supporter and my brother was an Arsenal supporter. And I kind of said, you know what? I'm going to go with Arsenal just to go against my father at the time, so we can have a bit of rivalry,
Yeah, that was like me. I picked Aston Villa. So
Aston Villa.
I'm well used to not getting worked up about things.
You might as well have picked Accrington Stanley.
I might as well. There was as much chance of winning something.
It's true. And come here, tell me this, right? So you mentioned how you got started in photography, and obviously there was a number of things that you would have learned from the lessons point of view. And then obviously, with BG and then learning about the filters and such, and then going out for the last 5.5 years. So far, what do you think has been the best lesson that you've learned?
I think the best lesson for anybody starting out is if you do something like a workshop, don't hang up the camera for 6 months afterwards. To go out, keep practicing, keep trying it, but just add it to your skill set. You had, which I have on a few weeks ago, you had Max Snappagram, Keith Levins, and he was talking about, because he's a fighting background, that repetition, keep doing it, and then eventually it just becomes natural, and you have to do that. I remember I did a tour down in Kerry with Bernard, and you're hesitant to try something new. I was hesitant to try manual focus because I just hadn't done it before.
Right.
And one of the guys that was there came over. Will you show me how to manual focus on it? 2 seconds, it was done. So it was so easy. But the next week, I just went out every day, and all I did was manually focus. So it's a piece of cake now. But I think at the start, you're looking at YouTube, and then you're wary of trying things out because you're not fully sure what to do. So the best thing to do is just keep going out with the camera, I think.
Absolutely. You know what? The more you do something, no matter how bad you are, you will get better incrementally. It's like walking, I mean, in reality, we didn't know how to walk. We got our first couple of steps, and all of a sudden, then we started running.
Especially when you're starting out, you get that massive boost at the start. That's when you make your biggest gains.
Yeah.
And then after that, Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yep.
You think you know everything, then you realize you know nothing. I think I'm at that bit at the minute. I'm at the realizing I know nothing bit. So hopefully, listen, I've all the time in the world to do this as a hobby. I could be doing it when I'm 80 years old. So
exactly.
I'm in no rush.
Yeah. Do you know what? No, look, I mean, it's something that I think, you've got many places as well to go visit. I mean, you're in the center of Ireland.
Oh, God,
so, everywhere is more or less the same distance away, if you want to put it in that way, because you can go to different areas. And actually, speaking of that, I mean, you mentioned with Paul Moore. I mean, Paul, Loch Owl has got some beautiful shots from around there. Loch Ennell has got some beautiful shots around there. So where have you photographed locally?
We've a couple of spots locally. Everybody kind of likes to give out about their local area sometimes. There's nothing in it, but we have some nice. I'm only 10 minutes away from the canal if I'm in a pinch.
Right.
If it's looking like a good sunrise or sunset, we've a lock house on the canal here in Tullamore, Boland's Lock. And the great thing about it is you'd be one side of it and you get the sunrise. If you go the other side, you get the sunset.
Hang on.
So if it's looking good and you don't have much time, you can fly down there. And then there's a castle, the far side of Tullamore, Shra Castle. Then you have Charleville Castle as well with the woods around it. If it's foggy or anything like that, I'd spend a lot of time up there. And then I'm 25 minutes away from Glenbarrow, 20 minutes away from Kinnity Castle and the forest around there. So there are plenty of spots around. I'm never stuck for somewhere to go.
And you mentioned as well, that you've gone to different parts. I mean, for me, I'm from Cork, and it's always strange for a Corkman to say that my favourite place to go take photos is Kerry. But have you got a favourite place in Ireland to go take photos?
I would have always said Wicklow,
Okay.
because I just like Wicklow. I like being in Wicklow. I like driving around it. You do a little trip around it. So you go to Clockley and then you head up the Sally Gap, and there's so many nice places just to stop and take a few pictures and end up in Glendalough. Connemara now, I'd say, would be rivaling that. I'd say the two of them are number one at the minute. Like Connemara is just brilliant. Like nearly in any weather condition, Connemara is nice, except maybe clear blue skies, but it's probably still nice then as well.
Yeah.
Do you know? Like if the weather turns terrible, brilliant. The weather's terrible, Connemara's just going to look better. So yeah, I really like there as well. Now there's a couple of places I haven't got to much. Donegal, I haven't got up there yet. That's on the books for next year. So
nice.
There's plenty of space for a third location to get into the top spot.
Well, you know what? I mean, I want to get into a bit more detail about Connemara actually later in the show with you, because I think Connemara is a absolute gem of an area with so many different opportunities.
It's a superstar of a location.
It is, yeah. And I mean, look, Donegal, Donegal is again a superstar of a location. I've gone to Donegal twice on 2 trips, and both trips I had to cut short early. So I still have unfinished business with Donegal, and I've only scratched the surface in relation to it. But like, Donegal is incredible. The whole coast of Ireland, I think. I mean, I'm a seascape photographer at heart, but the whole coast of Ireland is just beautiful. But you've got certain little areas that stand head and shoulders above the rest. And Donegal,
I just love that West Coast.
Yeah,
that West Coast. Like we went to West Cork for couple of days during the summer. We stayed in Inchydoney, just brought the kids down for a couple of days.
Nice.
Now the weather was terrible while we were there. It did non-stop rain for a few days, but I got a gap of about an hour and I ended up in Guggenbarra.
Oh, nice.
I've always wanted, that was like one of my bucket list places. I always wanted to get there, and it was just brilliant. Love it. So we're back down in Cork again next summer. So if a couple of other places wouldn't mind trying Baltimore Beacon, and there's a few more places now that I didn't get to go to that I wouldn't mind going to go to next year. I'll do up a little list for myself.
Yeah, there's a lot of places in the whole coastal area. I mean, Cork is lovely. I mean, Beara is a place I think that is underexplored.
Yeah, Norman McCloskey, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I remember when I had Norm on, I was talking to him in relation to that. I've gone to Beara, I don't know how many times, and again, I'm still only scratching the surface in relation to it. It's a gem. And it's not, the thing I love about that is that, tourists, or not even tourists, but photographers, let's just say, you'll go to the honeypot locations, and the honeypot locations are the ones that have been photographed a lot. They're beautiful for a reason, and you want to go and you want to get that shot. But Beara, I think, has so many little hidden gems within that. There's one area actually, which is on the Beara Peninsula. It's in Kerry, and it's on the part of Kenmare, let's just say. But in there, you've got a waterfall, which is absolutely beautiful. You've got an old famine cottage that's there. You've got a stone circle that's in there. You have a number of different lakes and hikes. You've got so much inside in that one little area. And
is that, I think I've seen shots from there. You have a tiny little cottage and you can see a waterfall in the background. Is that it?
That's the old famine cottage. Yeah,
I love that place.
Yeah, beautiful area there. So like West Cork, I mean, of course, I'd be proud of Cork being a Cork man. But I mean, the whole area of the coast is phenomenal. And I do think, myself and Bernard have chatted about this a lot, and we've even spoke about it when we were on Clubhouse about, the honeypot locations internationally. Everybody goes to Iceland. Most people are going to the Faroes now. Norway becomes another area to go to. Yeah. But like Ireland, it has so much to offer that it's now starting to only finally get the attention of the international photographers who want to come and witness these coasts that we have. And it's true. I mean, you get incredible waves, you get incredible sheer cliffs. And on top of all that, you've got great people where the crack is mighty, and you can get a fine pint and a grub and a place to stay, which is not going to cost you.
And it's so easy to get around as well. And you're never, you're not 20 hours away from somewhere, Precisely. And it's not too difficult to get somewhere. You're 4 hours away? You could stay overnight, head down to Kerry.
Yeah. Absolutely. Great. Yeah. And, I mentioned a couple of international spots there, I suppose. One final question before I go for break is, where have you gone internationally?
Absolutely nowhere.
Okay, where do you want to go internationally?
I want to go to Lofoten.
Nice.
That's probably my number one. I always wanted to see the Northern Lights, let alone shoot them. Mm-hmm. That would be number one. Isle of Skye would be another. Mm-hmm. Then you're looking at Iceland. There's 100 of other places that I wouldn't mind going. Slovenia, actually, I keep seeing Slovenia on Instagram lately. Like, that looks fantastic, really nice. I think every tour seems to be there at the minute.
Yeah, it does. I mean, but I think it's the time of the year as well, because the conditions are right there. You get not summery clear skies. You will get some nice conditions, but yeah,
you're getting a lot of this haze and fog and churches sticking up out.
Yeah,
it's just brilliant.
Lake Bled is incredible. I mean, and you talk about other areas as well that people are going to. Is one that I definitely want to go to is Tuscany, because I want to be able to see that rolling mists and across the hills and such like that. And
with those lines of trees just going through it.
Yeah. And I work with an Italian guy, and he goes on holidays every year to Tuscany. And I was saying to him, get me a picture of the mist. He's like, what do you mean, get you a picture of the mist? Get me a picture of the mist, please. Because people that aren't photographers don't see it as what it actually is, And I think that's the beauty of international spots. But the challenge actually about international spots, and you mentioned it a second ago too, I think the best way to experience an international spot is with a tour. Because if you have to go on your own, you're going to spend so much time trying to find locations at the wrong time for the wrong light. And, you might pick a place that you go, okay, we're going to base ourselves from here. And that could be miles away from anywhere that you want to go photographing, So it takes the hassle away from it as well, David.
But it's there's a lot to be said for just a tour and a workshop. To have someone plan it all for you, hop in a van, and they just bring you along. That's brilliant. And then to have them there, just said, if you saw the Northern Lights, well, how am I going to shoot this? Okay, I've looked at YouTube videos, but is it actually really going to work? Great to have someone beside you who's done it before and knows exactly how to do it. So
100%.
I know I'm a big advocate for workshops as a way of learning.
Yeah, 100%. And plus you get to meet people as well and have crack. That's the most important part.
Yeah, and do you know what? They're always nice.
Always nice.
Like, I'm amazed that, like, it probably sounds a bit cheesy, but at how nice the community is in photography in Ireland. Anybody I've met on a tour, anybody I've interacted with on Instagram, they're all lovely. Like, Keith Arkins was the person who put you onto me.
Yeah.
Like, that's typical Keith. Do you know? Like, just so you've met him actually. I think you had him on the show once before.
I featured him as one of the Sunday Insta Spotlights, I think it was. Yeah.
It's just like, I think Keith just sums up that whole spirit of the community in Ireland. Like, it's just super nice, super supportive. You'd run through a wall after a comment on Instagram. Top bloke.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Okay, look, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break there, okay, and I'll be right back. I want to talk to you. Actually, it's funny I mentioned there about the Insta Spotlights. I want to talk to you about an image that I featured on the Sunday Showcase as well, a number of months back. So, we'll be right back after this.
Great.
If you're enjoying this episode of the Irish Photography Podcast, why not jump back and listen to the back catalogue we have of episodes, where you'll get some great insights from fantastic guests, gear reviews, lots of hints and tips, and above all else, keeping you company while you drive or relax. Thanks very much for listening. Please consider subscribing, leaving a review wherever you're listening to this podcast. And you're very welcome back to the Irish Photography Podcast. So, David, you mentioned there, that you got a number of different areas that you photograph around where you're from. And as I said before the break, I want to talk to you about an image that you'd taken of Tullamore. I remember at the time looking at the image going, wow, this is a great image. I think it was picked for myself and Rodney O'Callaghan actually were doing the episode on the Sunday Showcase. And if anybody doesn't know what the Sunday Showcase is, it's basically our Facebook group. Every Sunday, there's a post there, shows your shots, shows what you photographed within the week. And then every so often, I'll pick some shots with a guest and we'll go through and we'll each pick 3 images. And one of the images that was picked actually was your shot of Tullamore. Tell us a bit more about this shot.
Yeah, it was a drone shot. I think it was back in January that I took it. It was -8.
Wow.
And I was only after getting this drone. I got a little Mavic Air at Christmas just to see what I use it. I had an old camera I wasn't using. I said, well, I'll trade this in. I'll get a drone, see if I use it. Because if I've one complaint about Offaly, there's no elevation.
Okay, yeah.
Like, we don't have any great mountains in the background. There's no huge hills or lovely valleys like you get in Wicklow or something like that. So I always thought if I got a drone and was able to get it up and could just get a different perspective of the town or different parts of the town, like iconic buildings or something like that, it'd be something I hadn't seen before. So I've always had this thought that drones would work better if you had conditions like fog, frost, sunrise, that type of thing. So I took a chance one morning. I actually wanted to take a picture originally of Shra Castle.
Okay.
And it wasn't really lining up with the canal. The canal was kind of leading you out of the frame a bit. So I just flew the drone. That was actually the hardest thing to do, was just get used to flying the drone. So I flew the drone forwards, and there's a railway line and a road that kind of arc in front of you, and I hadn't really noticed how much they arc before, because everything's fecking flat. So, and I could see the town. It just looked fantastic. You'd all the chimney fires burning, and the sun was coming in from side. I said, brilliant, I'll take this. So I think I took. Did I do like a pano? I don't know how to do an automatic pano on the drone, so I just kind of turned it and took a few pictures. So yeah, I think it was only about my third or fourth shot with the drone, I think. So yeah, I was surprised, and especially Rodney as well. He's so good at drone shots, and I think he was posting a lot of drone shots that week, so maybe that helped me a bit. But no, I was delighted with that.
Yeah, no, it was a great shot. And I mean, one of the things that we struggled with actually was trying to figure out where it was, and we didn't really kind of know.
I never wrote it on it.
Yeah, we didn't know where it was, but I mean, there was so much atmosphere, as you say, from the chimney smoke that was coming through. There was so much in relation to the canal. You had the railway lines, and then you could see the two towers at Tullamore. When you did tell me it was Tullamore, I was like, oh, okay, now I think I know where it is. But it was a great shot, and it was a great shot as well to feature. And thanks for sharing it within the group, because
no problem. Thanks for picking it out.
That was good. And not only that, but I mean, the fact that you only just got the drone, I mean, what a great way to start out in the drone photography journey too.
Yeah, and you know what? It's probably just set me on a path now where I'm only going to use the drone when there's ice or frost or fog or something like that. Because I went out once or twice more with it, and I got similar results of other parts of the county. So yeah, I'm looking forward to using it again. Don't get to use it as much as I'd like, though. I think everybody's like that with a drone. But
Yeah. Look, I mean, drones are a great thing to have, particularly as you say, in Offaly, you don't have any elevation, so you can have the elevation that's there.
They're a great complement to your main camera.
Yeah.
Just to have it. It's just a small thing, keep it in the bag. And if you think you'll get a worthwhile shot, throw it up and have a look.
Absolutely. There's no harm in trying it. I mean, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, okay. You tried.
No harm.
Yeah.
You're flying a little helicopter around. It's fun in itself.
Exactly. It's great fun just to fly it around the place anyway. The fact that it has a camera is a bonus,
Yeah.
And I suppose, something else then as well, looking at your shots, right? I mean, look, your gallery of images on Instagram is beautiful. There's a number of shots, I suppose, within that, but there's a couple of styles as well I want to kind of talk to you in relation to. And one is your woodland shots. Because tell me, how do you approach your woodland shots? Do you plan them? Do you go down the fly? What have you got in mind? What do you consider?
Well, woodland. I'm no Simon Baxter when it comes to woodlands, but
you don't have a dog called Meg, no?
I don't have a dog called Meg. I think that would just complicate things further. Like with woodlands, I just try and make it as easy as possible for myself. I go out with a 24 to 105 lens. I think that's a better lens to be using. It just kind of simplifies things. You can zoom in a bit. Usually I'll go for a walk with the kids. I'll have a scout around. If you can find a nice tree that you can make as a subject, or a clearing, I'll usually go around the edge of the woods. And then from that you kind of, okay, golden hour, which side will the sun be coming in? And I'll try and look for that time of day, and you'll be able to get nice light coming in from the side, because I think it's very hard woodland. So you just want to try and simplify it as much as possible, because if you go out during flat light, you tend to, it's very hard to get depth into an image. A lot of the woodland here it's very overgrown, on the forest floor and stuff like that. So look for symmetry, things like that, all that type of stuff, just to give yourself a chance. And if there's fog, straight to the forest.
Oh, well, do you know what? I mean, it's something, again, I wanted to ask you here about fog, because, I mean, the question I want to ask you is, fog your friend or foe? I mean, I know the answer of fog is going to be a friend, right? When we have the time of the year that we have right now, the mornings are typically when you're going to have very, very good fog. But if you can't get out in the morning, tell me about the kind of the topography around you. Do you get fog that lingers, or does it burn off? Or can you get fog later in the morning or during the day, or is it always in the morning that you can get fog?
It's generally in the morning. If you get a good settling of fog, it might last up till around 11, and then it'll burn off. So, and there's nothing more disappointing than driving to work when it's foggy.
Yeah.
God, I'd rather be doing anything else. Now, the odd time, like there's a great app called Windy.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have it.
I have it.
That's
Yeah.
brilliant for predicting fog. So if I notice it, and if I can maybe take a sneaky day off work,
Yeah.
I'll text someone and say, listen, I'll be in late tomorrow. I'll be in at around lunchtime.
Mm-hmm.
I'll try and go out then, because you can do so much more in the town when there's fog
Yeah.
than you usually can.
Yeah.
Like I've got shots here in Tullamore, trees that generally would have schools behind them. You'd never take the shot, but when there's fog and you have that fall off behind the subject, it just makes it so much easier. What I love most about pictures in Tullamore is when someone goes, "Is that Tullamore?" You go, yeah, it is. And I think fog is brilliant for that. Like I'll always stay local if there's fog, because you can just get unique shots that you haven't seen before.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And another area as well, that fog is great for is within the woodlands. And if you've got within the woodland as well, again, another side of photography I've seen in your Instagram feed is waterfalls. So, like if you can get it's the perfect mix. You get a beautiful woodland, you get a waterfall, and you have the fog coming into it as well. It's something which is bang. That you're going to get a banger image there.
Yeah, that's magic. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you approach your waterfall photography then? Is it similar to your woodland photography, or do you have a different approach in relation to that?
It'd be different. It's easier.
Okay.
Like waterfalls, they're like lighthouses. You have a great subject already, so really you're just kind of trying to manage the scene in front of you. Your foreground, just because you want the person's attention just to go from your foreground and flow up to the waterfall.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great if you have maybe a cascade in front of you. Get the wellies on, get the camera in front of that, and just after that, then it's just simplifying things and just managing the space in the image. Just kind of make sure it's balanced. Don't have huge gaps. That's what I spend most of my time doing, is just shuffling the camera around,
Mm-hmm.
and just to make sure everything just kind of fits right in the frame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love waterfalls. If you haven't been out in a while, a waterfall is a brilliant thing to go to. It just snaps you back into gear.
Absolutely. And you said one key thing there, which is throw on the wellies and get into the water, because you can get such a better flow of an image with the water coming towards the camera, as opposed to just coming along the side of the camera. I mean, and I went one step further. I bought full-on fishing waders. So that
I've thought about that.
yeah, and they're perfect, because you never know. I mean, the water can be deceptive how deep it is. And I've had that situation where I think it's deep enough. I had the wellies on, all of a sudden it's up past my knees, and now I'm just soaked. So the fishing waders are very, very a good tool. And actually, funny one is John Myler. Actually, we were out in Wicklow, and he'd just bought a Lee polarizer, right? And he put it onto the front of the camera, and the Lee filter holder system is notorious because a little clip and it would fall off.
Yeah, it just drops off. Yeah,
and that's exactly what happened. He spent €210 on this polarizer. It was his first time going to use it, and then bang, went into the water, and the water was black water, so you couldn't see anything. And he's like, "I'm not letting this go." He's like, "It's in there. I know it's in there." And I had my fishing.
Dive in.
So I had my fishing waders on. He asked me, could he borrow the fishing waders? I said, sure thing, man, no problem. So off he went in anyway. And he was looking down in the water, and he could see the little, the brass connector that you have on the top of the filter holder. He could see that. He's like, I can see it. I said, okay, can you reach it? He said, I can't reach it because it's actually down by his feet, and the water was up past his waist. So he said, look, I'm going to have to go in and get this. And I said, okay, man. He says, do you want to take the waders off? He said, I can't. The water is freezing. It was in February or whatever it was, So he said, look, I'm going to have to get your waders wet. And I went, all right, man, sure, grand. So he had to bend down and pretty much put his whole self into the water to grab this. But of course, the waders at the top, that just filled with water then. So he was basically in a wetsuit, effectively full of water, and he couldn't move then to try and get out of the water afterwards. He got the filters, he got the filter holder, but without the waders, there was no way he was going to be able to even spot where it was. You know what I mean? So I remember him afterwards; he was absolutely shivering because of it. I mean,
how was his mindfulness then?
Well, I think that was probably one where he had to draw on it, yeah, and to stop the shivering, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think for waterfalls, you really have to get into the water. And
you need to get in there. It's a ready-made foreground for you.
Agreed.
And it's so easy just to lead someone through an image with a waterfall, with the water, and then just bring it back, edit it, do a bit of dodging and burning, just tidy it up. Looks great.
And the polarizer.
And the polarizer, most important thing.
Yeah, most important. You know, I mean, the amount of people I see that don't have a polarizer because it's expensive. Okay, it's generally an expensive piece of glass, but it transforms everything that you want
If
to do.
if you're going to buy one filter, buy a polarizer.
Exactly. 100%. You know, and even there you'd see beautiful images, but you've got this big sheen coming off an area which detracts your eye from it. Whereas the
Yeah,
polarizer reflects that.
especially with leaves, when you got all those little white dots in the background. Or like, you don't have to put the polarizer on full all the time. Sometimes it can look all right with a bit of a shine on a rock, but they're just so handy to have, and it makes it a lot easier when you're editing then as well. Just because there's nothing worse than having that white sheen on top of water.
Absolutely.
You know?
100%. 100%. Okay, so we kind of mentioned there a moment ago about Connemara, and we mentioned in relation to going on tours with BG. So tell me, like, what was the story with that trip? Like, you got some phenomenal images, and you mentioned about Keith saying, okay, I got to get you on the podcast, is to kind of say, okay, what does he do? Tell us his secrets and such like that, because the images that you've gotten from that trip are absolutely phenomenal. So come on, spill the beans. What was the story with this trip?
There was well, there's no secrets to it. Like, from all my year, like I'm at photography 5 years, and it has to be the best mornings photography I've ever had. I've done tours with Bernard down to Kerry, up the North Causeway Coast, but that few hours up in Connemara was the best, like, few hours of photography that I've ever had. Everything went right. You know, Mark Fletcher was on the trip as well, and we got there. It was looking all right. It was looking kind of dull. And then maybe about 20 minutes before sunrise, Bernard goes, right, everybody out. He saw a gap at the far side. So we all hopped out, and we're fingers crossed. Wasn't even a great reflection on the lake at this time. So myself and Mark set up one side, and all of a sudden, just before the sky lit up, the reflection appeared, and the sky lit up at the same time.
Wow.
Brilliant. And then it just hung around. So I took a couple of shots there, was able to walk the whole way around the lake back to where Bernard was, get more shots there. Brilliant. Then where did we go? Lochena. After that, there's a little fishing hut there. And just as we were approaching it, the van started speeding up. Bernard saw that the light was hitting the mountains in the background, hopped out, stayed on the mountains in the background. And just as we got down to the shoreline, a gap appeared in the cloud, and the light started hitting the fishing hut. And we got a reflection. It was just one of those days. Wherever we went, the conditions were perfect. And I think myself and Mark spent more time telling the new people that were doing the tour, hadn't done a tour at all before, that it's not always like this. Just don't be expecting this every time you go out. Like, we couldn't believe it.
If Carlsberg did photography trips, that would be it.
That would be it.
Yeah.
Do you know, you were getting conditions that you wouldn't get in 2 years worth of going out every week. It just in the space of a few hours, just a real freakish day. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So,
and you know what? I mean, I always say it, and hats off to Bernard, because Bernard will always go on a trip without a plan, except that the plan is, I'm going to go and I'm going to get you where the light is. And he's a fecker for it. I mean, I don't know how he does it. He does it. We always joke, you've done a deal with the devil here again. Like, you know what I mean?
But you know, he's so well prepared.
Yeah.
Like, when I go on a tour now, he'll generally leave me to just do my own thing. Like, he give me hints and tips and things like that. But there's so much to learn off him by just watching him. And why is he making this decision? He always has like a plan A, plan B, and a plan, depending on what the weather is. And you learn so much just by watching why he makes those decisions. Why is he going over there? Do you know? That's why I spend most of my time on tour doing, is just kind of watching him go, why is he doing that? Do you know, like, it's fantastic just to be able to learn off someone like him.
It is, absolutely. And look, you know, it was a great location. Connemara, as we said, is beautiful, but you got everything, all the ducks lining up there in a row.
Yeah, it's super.
Yeah.
Like, I could probably go back 100 times and not get that morning again. But it's a few of them off the list. Grant. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Happy days.
That's Derry Clare done for a couple of years.
And actually, you go off out, you get your images, right? So you've got your SIM card, it's brimming full of images, and you can't wait to get back home to edit. So tell me about your editing process. Do you think that you've developed a style so far, or do you take each image as its own merit and have a different output? Tell me what your approach is to your editing.
I generally take each image as it comes. I've always tried to avoid a style. I kind of thought that would be restrictive in some way. Do you know, like, sometimes you see people and they have a certain filter, or kind of they might desaturate an image, and that becomes their thing. And then every image to put up is like that. I always kind of wanted to avoid that. Now, there's certain things I do with every image, with shadows, or go into the Nick collection and do a bit in that. I have a couple of things I always do, but generally I just edit it to my taste until I think it looks good. And it'll be, maybe someone else would be better in deciding if I have a style or not. I don't know, but I just try and edit it till it looks nice, and that's about it.
How long would you spend on an image on average?
The better the image, the less time you'd spend on it.
Okay. Good answer, by the way.
I usually take my time with them. Like I know Bern will tell you 5-10 minutes and that'll be enough, but I just like kind of tipping away and trying different things, because you learn more about editing and doing that anyways.
For sure.
Yeah. And you might stumble across something, geez, that actually looks better from doing that. I might try that again. And it's just fun. I enjoy editing. I suppose if I was a wedding photographer or something, I'd hate it, but like I only have a couple of images, so it's grand just to pass the time and try out a few different things with it.
How long do you leave them cook for?
I won't look at them that evening. I might leave it to the next day and I'll work on one or two, and then I'll leave them for a few days and then go back and look at them again, because that's probably the best thing you could do, because going back after a few days, you see things with new eyes. They don't look as good as they did the first time. Don't be in a rush with them.
And have you gone back over and edited any of your earlier images now based on what you've learned on your editing? I don't want to say style, because you say, okay, you take it each image with its own merit, but have you gone back any of your older images now and done a re-edit on those?
A couple of them, yeah. The first time I was at Derry Clare Loch, I posted an image to Instagram, and it was grand. I did an all right edit on it. It was very blue. Okay. I loved it at the time.
Right.
And then I think it was about 2 years later, I went off blue, and I went back and started re-editing things, and it actually looked a lot better. And I kind of had that, if you desaturate the blue, sometimes you get this lovely silvery kind of look to it. So yeah, I've done a couple.
It's a good thing to do, because you do learn, as you say, like not only going out and using the camera, but you do learn every single time you edit an image too, because you will figure something out that works for an image that you didn't know or you needed to know on something you would have done in the past.
Yeah.
And I always find that that's something that is always kind of interesting for me to even look at. You mentioned there, thinking that you know everything when you're realizing you know absolutely nothing, right? It's the same thing when you look back in your photography, even at the processed image that you put out 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. And I remember at the time you said, okay, there was a bit too much blue. I mean, I joke all the time with people kind of going, when you first get into Lightroom, the slider is not designed to go to 10. You don't have to bring it to 10.
Clarity to 100.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where, you can get some great gains in the editing, because it's the smallest amount. It's the subtleness that you need to do. And I had a video actually there a couple of weeks back, which really taught me a lot. Was I was thinking about I don't know if you saw the video or not. It was reimagined, I call the image, the videos. That I was thinking, when I do my edits, I have my own bias and I have my own default that I would apply to my images. And I wondered how other people would edit my image and would they get a different output. So I asked a few of the guys, I suppose, that would have been guests in the podcast, but I suppose they're the bigger names that are out there.
Some top guys there.
Yeah, and Adam Gibbs to me was one that really blew me away, because he did an awful lot, but he did very little as well at the same time.
Yeah. I think I actually learned more from his videos regarding editing than anybody else.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of his with dodging and burning, and how he manages his colors and greens and stuff. Great. He's got some great videos for that.
He does, yeah. So, in editing, I think you'll agree with it, less is more. And it's not a case of, as you say, go to clarity onto 10. Like, and, if there's an 11, I'd actually buy the software that would give me the 11 to be able to use it, that kind of way. So it's always eye-opener, but it's a great process to be able to go back over your own images and even seeing your own progress. Because I even look at images that I've taken 6 months ago that I thought were great, and now I go, Jesus, okay, that's not good.
Yeah, Instagram is brilliant for that. I generally leave up every image that I've posted, because it's a great way just to scroll back and see your progress. And like when I go back, very drab colors and then almost cartoonish colors, and you see them start to improve incrementally as you go along. I'd say what I work out most is just honing colors now, or shadows, things like that. There's a great guy on Instagram called Ed Allen.
Okay. I
don't know if you've but he's fantastic colors. Stephen Dunbar up the north as well. It's great colors as well. Just very deep colors, very deep shadows. And I'm kind of I'd kind of aim in more that direction at the minute.
Nice.
Could be completely different next year. But
Well, do you know what? And probably be different again the year after that too.
yeah.
You know? Yeah. All right. Listen, look, that's been fascinating there. I think it's been really interesting having those conversations about your style and the different things and your approaches. What I want to do is I want to take one final break there, and I'll be right back. I've got 3 questions I ask every guest, and I'm going to ask you the same 3 questions. So I'll be right back after this.
Great.
If you're enjoying this episode of the Irish Photography Podcast, why not jump back and listen to the back catalogue we have of episodes, where you'll get some great insights from fantastic guests, gear reviews, lots of hints and tips, and above all else, keeping you company while you drive or relax. Thanks very much for listening. Please consider subscribing, leaving a review wherever you're listening to this podcast. And you're very welcome back to the final part of the Irish Photography Podcast. So, David, like I said, I have 3 questions that I ask every guest. And the first question is, tell me a funny photography story.
Okay, this is the hardest question of the lot of them, I think. Like, I don't know how, if I have any really funny stories. I'm on my own 99% of the time. I usually have the general mishaps that everybody has, the type of thing that you edit out of your YouTube videos,
Yeah.
mostly falling in rivers. Fell in a river down in Wicklow and then saw my mask float past me and down the river. But a couple of months ago, I was scouting this I'm going to try not to be rude here. I thought it was a shack, a little abandoned cottage.
Right.
Okay. On the way to this forest called Glen Offaly, and I had passed this place. I must have passed it 10 times. The front door wide open, any time of the day or night, no lights on, nothing in the garden, like the garden was all overgrown. And like it had looked run down, and there was a newly built house about 100 yards down the road. And I said, it's a lovely abandoned little cottage there. It's great. And there was nothing behind it. So I thought, it'd be great maybe for star trails or something like that. I'll stop the next time I'm going past and just kind of scout it, maybe take another picture. Got there anyways, looked the very same. No lights on, front door wide open, like windows open with curtains swinging out and that type of thing.
Right.
And it was always like that. Hopped out, got the camera on a tripod, going to take an image. Heard this dog barking. What the hell is that? Then heard this man shouting and cursing wildly. So I thought to myself, oh shit. Lifted my head up from the camera, and there's this 90-year-old man and this tiny little Bichon Frise dog coming out the front door
Of the house.
and he was out the house and he was looking to fight. So what the F are you doing here? And I just had to say, and I didn't want to tell him, I'm sorry, I thought your house was abandoned, because that'd just make things worse.
Yeah.
And he was coming towards me with the fists up, and fortunately he was moving that slowly that I had about 10 minutes just to look. I was trying to explain myself. I'm going to delete the picture, I'm sorry. And eventually I was worried he'd come over and he'd fall trying to hit me or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I'd be standing there with a man on the ground and a Bichon Frise biting me in the ankle. Like, what am I going to do here? So I just apologized, deleted the pictures, hopped in the car and drove out there as fast as I could.
Wow.
But yeah, my own fault. Should have scouted that a bit better. I've learned my lesson.
But you scouted it 10 times when you were passing. The front doors open and the wavy curtains in the windows.
I drove past that, and you wouldn't think anybody was in it.
Was he real? Was he a ghost?
He was definitely real anyways. I wasn't too happy to see me. I'd say I've been blamed for every burglary and misadventure in that area for the last fucking 3 months.
Wow. Jesus, man, is that crazy? The doors open the whole time and everything like that.
Yeah.
Like,
and me avoiding street photography because I don't want any confrontation.
there you go now. You did it by default. They were not even realizing it. All right, that's a good funny story. Okay. Tell me, what gear do you use? What's your camera? What's your lenses, etc.?
Well, I have the same camera as yourself, actually, the Canon R.
Good.
I had an 80D before that. That was a brilliant camera.
Yeah, nice
but
camera.
I kind of promised myself, if I'm still doing this after a few years, I'll buy one of those fancy full frame ones. So yeah, got the R. It's fantastic, just by holding it. It's a lovely
great
piece
camera.
of kit.
Yeah.
So I still have my EF lenses at the 60-35 and the 24-105. It's the most underrated lens you can have.
Agreed.
And I have a Tamron 70-300, which I don't get to use as much as I should, but yeah, it's an all right lens as well.
Nice.
And then I have a little Canon M6. I'm always on the lookout for a good second camera, a little small one you can put in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
you know yourself, if you're somewhere with the kids,
Absolutely.
the last thing, they're the most impatient people in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no patience for dad putting a camera on a tripod
Mm-hmm.
and looking at a tree.
Mm-hmm.
So generally I have this little one that I put in my pocket and I can bring that around, and it's got a good sensor. It's got the 80D sensor in it,
Okay,
so
very good.
it actually
Yeah.
takes decent pictures, and I can adapt the other lenses onto it just for a bit of extra reach.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, what do I have? Oh, the Samyang 20mm 2.8 lens
For Astro.
Astro that I don't get to do, and I've two Vanguard tripods. Now they're all right. I have a little Vanguard travel tripod which has served me very well. I like that tripod, and then I have a big heavy one that I bring on tours, so Bernard won't give out to me for having a small light one. And then other than that, I went through the phase of buying camera bags, so I have two low pro bags. I have a little small one if I'm traveling light, and a good solid big one for everything else. With the name of it, I couldn't tell you.
Is it silver and grey in colour?
No, it's a black one.
All right, okay. It's probably...
What's it called? A flip? It's got a flip side.
Yeah, the flip side. Yeah. And what filters do you use?
I have a Format high-tech filters.
Very good. From Bernard?
Yeah, it was Bernard to put me on. They're great.
Yeah.
I see you with the case ones, actually, the magnetic ones.
Yeah.
They look really good, actually. I love that magnetic feature that they have.
Yeah, it's really good. The only problem with it is that the graduated is absolutely not... Forget about it. It's a joke.
I generally don't. I tend not to use one anyways.
I'm the same as
Very
that.
Rarely I use a graduated filter.
Same as that. I've had to change.
And it's huge.
Yeah, it is, yeah. Now, Case, I come up with a new one actually, which is interesting, but it doesn't work on the Wolverine one that I have, which is the circulars, but it's a double graduated filter. So you've a soft on the top, turn it round on the other end, and you've a hard, so that you can slot it in and you can move it this way, or just turn your lens holder, and now it's the other way around. So it's, instead of having the bowl bottom clear, you've got neutral density, different variances in the top and bottom. Quite interesting, Yeah.
You find some reason to use it.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, look, it's got good stuff on the Canon, good lenses as well. And, good solid feet, I think, is really, really important as well. So that's the secret, I think, to how getting your shots is just to make sure you bring a good tripod so burn doesn't give out to you.
Yeah, a good solid tripod. And I was always terrible for not using a tripod.
Okay.
I'd run around with the camera in hand, when I was starting out and stuff. And I remember the first time I actually met up with Keith Arkins. We went up to, was it Doon the Reef Forest Park? And I was running around with the camera in hand, and I look over at Keith, and he's carefully putting the camera on the tripod, carefully setting up his composition. I'm just thinking, oh, it's proper photography we're doing. Okay, right. So, you learn off everybody. Keith's that modest, he'll tell you could learn nothing off him, but like ever since then, I've kind of used the tripod a bit more. Okay, maybe I should be doing it this way. The shots are better. I can focus stack and things like that.
Absolutely, yeah. And you know what? I mean, it's very important to have good solid feet, particularly if you're going to be in water, because the water will move the tripod legs.
Or near a cliff edge.
Yes, and you know what? I mean, amount of people out there spend a fortune on a camera, fortune on the lenses, and then they go and put onto a tripod, which costs them 60 quid.
To go to Argos.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I think we all kind of make that mistake at the start, and you end up buying 3 useless tripods.
I have a few of them up there, from when I would have started out, that I thought were the bee's knees, and actually I wouldn't even give them away to somebody.
What's that phrase? Buy cheap, pay twice.
Yeah,
is that it?
Yeah, buy cheap, pay
twice. I could be butchering that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, look, but we actually made a podcast about it a number of years back about the amount of tripods you have. They'll tell you if you're an amateur, a semi-pro, or a pro, or if you're obsessed. And I mean, the reality is that you will go through different iterations of tripods as you go better.
A good tripod could last you 15 years.
Absolutely.
So
it's a bit like glass on the front of the camera. You'll change the body, the glass will stay the same.
Yeah, and still, like, I usually buy things on the second-hand market, so I think that definitely the 24-105 is like the first generation version of that, but it's brilliant.
Yeah, great lens.
No complaints with it.
Yeah, I had one of those as well. I still have it actually, but it's dead. It fell into the water. I decided to go for a dive with my Canon 70D.
Did you send John Myler in after?
No. It was John Myler was actually with me. It was actually the same day. That's interesting. It was the same day it happened. My camera went for a dive in the morning, and he went for a dive in the afternoon with his filter system. Now that I think about it, it was the same day. Yeah.
Christ.
Yeah.
That's an expensive day.
That was a very expensive day. Yeah, it was expensive day.
Yeah. I've been lucky like that, actually. I haven't yet, touch wood. I haven't had any mishaps like that so far.
Yeah, good stuff. Hopefully you won't do any after talking to me about it as well. I won't be putting any kiboshes on you. You know, you'll be cursing me forever.
Thankfully.
Yeah. All right. And the third question I have then is, we have a regular feature. It's called a VSP. It's a very solid product. It's a product you won't leave home without. You'll put your name to it if you could. So what's yours?
Okay. Can I say 2?
Go on. So we'll say 2.
Polarizer.
Okay, yeah, very good.
That we've talked about. And then for editing, actually, I got this thing. It's a graphics tablet.
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever use one of
I
these?
have one there, Gathers Dust.
Yeah. I think it's brilliant. I bought one on Amazon. It was about €30. This XP pen, I think it's called. But it's an A4 size tablet. And it's so handy, I find, for editing. Because it makes things easier for me. Like, I'm left-handed. So I've the tablet on one side and I've the mouse in the right hand, and I'm kind of working the two of them at the same time.
Right.
But I find for dodging and burning, those little bits, even removing things in Photoshop, it's just so much handier with that than using a mouse.
And does that probably come back from when you were saying in relation to the art and the style, the drawing and such like that, because it's a tactile feel. It's something that you're used to having a pen in the hand.
Yeah, it could be that. Yeah, I just find for certain things, if you're kind of brightening something or if you're darkening something, I just find the mouse clumsy at times for doing that. But just it's so much more precise with a little pen and a tablet.
Yeah, I know loads of people that use them, and when they start using it, they'll never go back to using a mouse. I mean, I've tried it a couple of times, and I just go, okay, you have to kind of commit. I know the first part of it is the learning area of it, but I have to kind of go, you know what? No, I just want to get it done, and I'll go back to the mouse. But it gathers dust. I have it sitting there, just gathers dust.
Give it another go. It's well worth it.
I've done that around 4 times now.
All right, get rid of it.
And each time I'm like, no, I keep going back to the mouse. No, very, very good VSP. And you know what? It's something I think that a lot of people would find a good benefit from as well. If somebody is a doodler or a drawer, then that's a great way to be able to edit your images as well, because you're actually making contact with something that you're actually using.
Yeah, I just find it it just feels a lot more natural.
Yeah. Good. All right. So listen, we're almost there, man. That was a great chat. I think, it's been fascinating for me to kind of learn about your photography journey. And you have given some hints and tips as well along the way, even though you probably think you haven't. You have given quite a lot as well. Only 2 final things really to ask you is, number 1, where can people find more information? And number 2, what's next for you?
Okay, well, number 1, I'm on Instagram. It's the only place I'm on.
Okay.
So that's the only place you'll find me.
And is your Instagram handle, as they call it, easy to find? Is it just your name, or is it?
Was it David lowercase? What's that?
Underscore.
Lowercase dash underscore David underscore Loughman. That's it.
Okay, very good. And what's the next thing for you? Have you any trips planned?
Do I have trips planned? I've no workshops planned. But I know next year we're back down in Inchydoney for a few days, so I'll hit that, and then I've convinced Elaine to go to Connemara for a few days. It's funny how our family holidays are always in these lovely scenic places. And I'm going to try and take a few days off work and go to Donegal for about 3 days just to see if I can
Very good.
get a couple of shots up there, because I meant to do that last November. I think we went into lockdown again. So
yeah, but you know what? It's good that we're out of lockdown, but I do think there's a potential that they're going to bring us back into some bit of a lockdown over Christmas again. Apparently, that's what I'm hearing rumblings of anyway. But
that's good of them.
Yeah. No, David, it's been a great conversation, man. I'll put the links to your Instagram and such like that in the show notes so people can find you easily enough. I really enjoyed the conversation. And if you are coming to Inchydoney next year, let me know. And if I'm available, I'll meet up with you and I'll show you a couple of areas in the real capital of Cork, as they say.
Brilliant. No, thanks a million for having me on. I was shocked when you asked me to be on.
Well, you have to blame Keith Arkins,
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was good. It was good, man. Listen, look, from me in Cork to you in the beautiful Offaly, beautiful Tullamore.
Landscape capital of Ireland.
That's it, by the Mecca, the new home, the Middle Earth. It's been great, man. Yeah, so all that's left for me to say is thanks a million and strong before.
That's great. Thanks a million, Dave.
Hey guys, if you dig what you're hearing, why don't you jump over to iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating and don't forget to share with your friends. With all that done, we'll see you next week. And remember, keep shooting.